Hello and welcome to another episode of Penelope's Chinwag. My name's Pene. I live in the southeast of England with my husband Pete, and it's very nice to see you. I'm just going to start and we'll see where we go from there. All I know is there is going to be my story, and I was born in 1949 and I've written my history really. I start like that. I was born. And I'm up to 49, and so far I'm up to 1968. So if you'd like, anyway, I'll talk about that when we get there. My darling friend Heather's one of these people that she doesn't just make one quilt, then before you can say Jack Robinson, she's made another one, and now she's got into making things for her crafting stall. And I mean, they're just amazing. I popped round there. She's got half a dozen penguins, geese, goodness knows what else. Oh, the penguins were so gorgeous. I didn't take a photo. I popped round there and I sit in her crafting room. We have a good old chinwag. She does craft fairs and her stall is absolutely laden. And everything's absolutely beautiful. And so reasonable. I mean, phenomenal. However, Bumblecat Crafts, you will see that. I'll put it down below. But that's what she is. If you want, you find her on Instagram. And Heather was invited to have a stall in Ramsgate tunnels. And Ramsgate was ahead of its time because the town actually opened its brand new air raid shelter tunnels on the 1st of June 1939, a few months before the war even began. They'd built nearly 3 miles of them under the streets. You imagine 3 miles. So when you go drive through Ramsgate, there's all these tunnels underneath. And there were various places to get into them. By spring and early summer, the East Kent coast was getting regular air raid alerts as the Battle of Britain began. And that's when people really started using the tunnels properly. School children, families, older folks helped down the steps. It just became part of the daily routine. And then the 24th of August, 1940, Ramsgate had the huge raid and more than 1,000 buildings were decimated in 5 minutes. 1 minute they're leading ordinary lives and the next they're living seaside town lives, but down in the tunnels. And we've been down there 3 miles. That's a long way you go round, and they've got it all. They're all been restored, if you like, if you can restore a tunnel, but there's all beds, and they showed you how the children have their lessons, and it's really worth a visit. You're not allowed to take any film or photographs, otherwise I would have done so when we went. So that's Ramsgate history, and over me chatting, I'll have put some photographs up of Heather's stall down in the tunnels. And she said it was a good day. It was well supported, and she parted with a lot of her lovely goods that she makes. So that's saying how people are resilient. And for me this week, I've needed to be resilient because I've had a bit of an earache this week, but that's by the by. The other thing that's happened is for the whole week, I've had no hot water and no heat because our boiler's broken. It's going to be done next week, which is super. So we haven't been freezing cold. We've got electric, we've got gas. I put the gas, the old gas cooker on, and that heats up the kitchen. And I've got a washing machine and I've got a dishwasher. And I've got a flushing toilet. So it hasn't been that hard. I just haven't had a boiler that kicks in. That means I can put the heating on. We actually haven't had it on at all this year. We just needed it to come on the week that it broke. That's probably what always happens, isn't it? But as I say, we're getting a new one next week. And I've been having strip washers with boiling a kettle. And I've been listening to Linda of Joy of Things. I don't know if you listen to Linda, but she's reading a book that somebody wrote, just a small one, about the place where her mum was brought up, and of course that she knows. We call it down here in the south, up to north, and Ebygum and Eopmidok. But honestly, she talked this week about, you know, getting a candle and going and crossing a main road to go to the toilets and dropping a bit of candle wax on the toilet seat and sticking the candle on the toilet seat. And, you know, anyway, it didn't bear thinking about. And it just made me feel not quite so bad. All right, things aren't perfect, but there we are, we get through. And I've got something I want to show you, because Bob and Brad, have you heard of them? They're physiotherapists. They've got 5 million on their YouTube channel. And honestly, I'd never heard of them, but I have now, and I'm tuned in, and I can tell you, I watch them because Pete has difficulty walking now, and you know my story with him. You know, it's lucky he's here, and it's all of that. But yeah, they give some really good tips, you know, how to get up off the floor, how to keep moving, how to do this, how to do that. And their videos are so practical. Anyway, Bob and Brad, they emailed me and they said, would you like to use one of our hand massagers? We'll send it to you and you can give a genuine, if you think it's rubbish, just say it's rubbish. And if you think it's good, then say it's good. Obviously, be honest. We put nothing on you. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, I thought, I don't know. Shall I, shan't I? As well as washing machine head, I have a shall I, shan't I head. I thought about it. I gave myself time to think. And I thought, why not? Now, I do a lot of crafting. And I have early onset, seen a specialist, of Dupuytren. Do you know what that is? It's where, when you haven't got early onset, your hand folds up and you can't open it. And so I do regular exercises. I've got squashy balls. I just exercise my hands all the time, and I think that's why I go from maybe doing a bit of knitting on this here, bit of knitting on that there. I definitely can't do crochet. Definitely my hand won't let me. I do then sewing, and I change it up because I don't want my hand to get stuck. Well, it's quite painful and keeps me awake at night. So I thought, well, let's see. I'll give you an honest appraisal. It comes in this box. The real massagers for real relief. They do them for everything. I mean, honestly, everything. Beautifully packaged. And you get this. I haven't used this, to be honest. I'll open it and show you. Crinkle, crinkle. Right, and that, you put your finger in, and if you've got the arthritis, you can just give your hand a bit of a going over. I was a masseur. Before I became a counsellor for the NHS, I was a masseur. And I thoroughly enjoyed my job, but I realised I couldn't do 2 things. And so I stopped doing that professionally. So I do know about all of this. That's all right. When you've got the massage, well, I suppose you can pop that in your pocket, can't you? Anyway, the massager is much better. You get a user manual. You get a pair of gloves. Well, more than a pair. There's a few pairs in there, because if you want to put hand cream on and then put your gloves on and then massage your hands, and you get something to keep it in. Nice bag. And so it's been plugged in, and that's all you do. Plug that in, you know, like a phone, to recharge it. Just a little bit on the side there. Now, I absolutely love it. Hand on heart, I'm not saying that. They've said to me I can say whatever I like. Absolutely, they're such lovely, lovely people. So here we go, Bob and Brad. Let me show you. Switch it on. You just have to hold that down. Well, you saw how long for. Oh, start straight up. It's got different levels. You can have it on green or red. That's really going it. Or blue. And then you can do that one and have heat. And it's like airbags round your fingers. And the airbags are going in and out. It's just a beautiful massage. It's doing my palm. It's going to do my wrist in a minute. And it's lovely and warm. Down below there's a link, and or wherever it is on your iPad or whatever. You can't do it on the telly, look down below, but in my details I shall put a link, and that means that you can get 10% off, and the US too. You get it through Amazon, 10% off. So if you fancied something like that, bye-bye, there it is. I better get on. I'll turn it off. Look, simple as. It's lovely and warm because I've got the heat on. I'm going to turn it off. Click. Take my hand out. You can see it's like cushioned airbags that go round. So that's it. So you see, although I haven't had a boiler, hot water and radiators on, I've got a hand massager. I've got a kettle that'll boil, and that's a lot, you know, a lot different, isn't it, to times gone by. Okay, how many bones is there in a giraffe's neck? Do you know? You think how long that giraffe's neck is. I mean, if there was one standing in the garden, I reckon he could look into my bedroom window here. How many bones in it? How many bones in our neck? Well, the answer's 7. There's 7 in ours and 7 in the giraffes. Isn't that amazing? I heard that on the television yesterday, and it stuck with me. A wonderful design to have 7 bones to be able to do what we do, and then, you know, for the giraffe to be able to do what it does. And then the other thing I thought was, what's the longest bridge in the world? Do you know? I'll give you a second to think about it. Longest bridge in the world? Are you miles or kilometres? We're miles. 102.4 miles. Can you imagine being on a bridge that's 102 miles long? Or 164.8 kilometres. Unbelievable. It's part of the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway, and it's the Danyang Kunshan Grand Bridge in China. I thought that was a fascinating fact. Yeah. I don't think, you can imagine getting on and thinking, most bridges I get on, I want to get off, you know, well, it's not long. We've got a tunnel here that goes from our, you know, part of the coast through to France. It doesn't take that long. What is it, about 24 miles? This is 102. I wouldn't fancy getting on that. So, I've told you about the hand massager, told you about Heather's stall, and I've done the film. The film, we were out for a walk and it had been really windy. And so it's just a walk by the sea with the waves coming up, and I can't leave the sound of the sea on because it's just, you know, too noisy. But if you fancy a relaxing walk by the sea with me, our there and back walk, that's at the end. And I wanted to talk about what I've been making. And here we are. It's in this book, Little Star. It's a Rowan book. If you liked the pattern that I'm doing, you can probably get it separately and not have to buy the book. But I've got a lovely wool shop in my little town. And Pete saw this. He said, "Oh, Pen, you must knit this for Mila." I said, "Okay, I'll try and find you the photos." Have got me. I'm so annoyed about them. Oh yes, they're very pretty photos, somebody taking it, but that's not what a knitter wants to see. A knitter wants to see, how does the shoulder look? How do you knit that? You know, you want, oh no, she's got a hair over it, both of the shoulders. Dopey. And there it is. Even in these, look. We're not interested in the girl's sad face. We're interested in this. But that's the pattern. I didn't like these squares. I wanted them all the same. So didn't do these squares. But as you know, I can do crochet, but my hand doesn't like me doing crochet. So my friend Kate came to stay recently, and she's brilliant at crochet. That's her thing. And so I said, "Kate, do you fancy doing me a few squares?" Well, it turned out they take a bit longer than normal, because I think most people that crochet do it with cotton. It doesn't split then. But this is a lovely 4-ply wool. And I've done it all but one sleeve. I'll show you. Here's the back. So Kay did the squares. We sort of alternated them. But then what I really like is the rest of it is knitted. There's the sleeve. So it's rib. So it, you know, expands. It's done on a 2.75 or 2 US needle, so it's very fine. But that's what I like about it. It's very fine. It's got a collar. So it's for Mila. And then mine, I've got my Nan's button box. We're talking a lot of buttons. I put a photo up here while I was searching for them. So I've got my Nan's buttons, my mum's buttons, and my buttons. And I've collected buttons ever since I was, you know, knee-high to a grasshopper. So I've got tons and tons of buttons. And these were my Nan's, I know that. So that's Mila's. I'm her great-nan. Mila's my great-granddaughter. She's sixth day before yesterday, I think. So I'm her great-nan. My mum would be her great-great-nan. And my nan would be her great-great-great-nan. And so she's got buttons. I mean, these are what people sell as vintage now. I can't stand that word, so don't get me started. But I thought they're exactly the right colour. That sort of 1940s plastic or whatever it is. I don't know. It's not plastic, you know. But they go so well. And so to have her, all those great Nan's, you know, buttons, I think would be lovely for her, because my granddaughter, her mum, obviously, is a very sentimental girl, and she treasures everything. She's one of those people. So there it is. So if you fancy doing something like that, I love it, because you've got the knitting over the squares, which makes it sit nicely. A lot of the patterns that I see that do it with squares, you've got squares going over there, and I'm not keen. That's why I've never made one. But Pete saw this and he said, "Oh, do it." So there we are. That's what I'm making. So I'm getting that other sleeve finished. I like to get my things sewn up before, as I go, I sew things up, because I think the neater you can be and the more trouble you can take sewing things up, the better they turn out. I mean, I had to take the buttons off and realign that line. And sometimes when you finish knitting it all and you think, "Oh, I can't wait to get this done," you can rush it. Anyway, so I've done it, and I will be knitting the sleeve, and I'll show you when that's finished. All the patterns in this book are by Marie Wallin, who's absolutely super. 21 designs for children aged 3 to 10. So I think that's about it. I'm getting a bit warm now. I've got my electric heater on, so I think I'm going to cut the waffle and I'm going to read you my story. Well, I didn't know whether to read you this part of my story, but, well, it's how it was. It's my life. And over the years after that, I changed my view of things. I've changed my way of being, and we all change as we grow up, don't we? But, well, this is how it was for me. In 1968, and I was 19, and yeah, as you know, waiting to get married, couldn't wait. And we'd looked over a house which we fell in love with, and the next hurdle was going to be getting a mortgage. And yeah, so I'm going to read it to you. Be kind. Dad told us to apply to the Halifax Building Society's head office in London. "Go to the top," he suggested, "and I'll stand guarantor." That's because getting a mortgage then was very, very difficult. If you went to your local branch, probably they'll turn you down. But, it wasn't easy. So he said, "Go up to London and see the guy there," which we did. And we were thrilled when the acceptance came through. Our repayments amounted to roughly £35 a month, and this really scared me. And I do remember several months when I just couldn't make the payment and we had to add it on to the end, and anyway, that's for the future. However, I didn't think too much about it and knew it would all work out okay in the end, ever the optimist. We asked the lady of the house, the one that we'd looked over and decided we wanted to buy, if we could delay completion for as long as possible, and she agreed. We, after all, weren't getting married for another 11 months and hadn't even thought about wedding arrangements. And so for the next few months life ticked over for us, with Peter living at his Auntie Ada's, sleeping in the top bedroom at 119, they always called it this, never 119, and working at the luncheon club, and myself settling down in the Hermitage and working in Wood Green, well, just past the Cockbows Road, really. I remember one night the air raid siren going off at about 2 in the morning and being absolutely petrified. This is it, I thought, the 4-minute warning. I scuttled off to Mum and Dad's room, mine feeling so big and lonely, for reassurance. We were all there in the morning, and it was just a fault in one of the Second World War sirens. Phew! I was still worried about world affairs, and I found the world a scary place. In 1963, Martin Luther King delivered his famous speech, "I Have a Dream," to 200,000 peaceful demonstrators in Washington. On the 4th of April of 1968, he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, by an escaped convict. Anti-war demonstrators had stormed the American embassy in London in March, And although things were fun, and it was true that everybody was so much better off in the 60s, things in the world were still bad. Dad had bought Mum a gorgeous car. It was a Morris Minor convertible and was dark blue with a white soft top. I absolutely loved it and was thrilled to bits. Oh yes, I did say it was Mum's, but as you know, she was a nervous driver and only went round the block and a bit beyond, maybe to Wood Green, which left it free for us more or less whenever we wanted. We decided to make a trip to Devon to visit Len and Grace, Pete's mum and dad, and I was excited as we packed up our things. Peter had only a provisional licence and decided to go in for his test. He'd once worked in a quarry and could drive A-OK, especially backwards, as he'd operated a dumper truck. He had a lesson to brush up on his strategies for the test and another lesson just before the test, which he passed. So off we set on the long trip to Devon. We decided to break our journey, and I can't remember where we stayed, but I do remember it wasn't what we anticipated. We felt sure we would find somewhere lovely, but you know what it's like. You travel on, and by the time you want to stop, you're tired and hungry, and there's nothing suitable. I think it was August bank holiday, which meant everywhere was booked, especially in 1968, because package holidays were in their infancy, and it would be a few years before the masses laid on the beaches in Benidorm. However, we eventually found somewhere, but the trouble was they only had a single bedroom, free. We decided to take this, as it was better than nothing, and we squashed up in the bed. I'd have thought this marvellous, seeing as we were never on our own, but sleeping all night cramped up in a single bed isn't that much fun. Well, it wasn't for me, despite what people say about young love and all that. Of course, the inevitable happened, and why not? It was the 60s, and we were prepared, as I'd sorted myself out with the help of a clinic. You couldn't go to your doctor or family planning if you weren't married then, but there was a clinic in London called Marie Stopes, and it was for unmarried people. We were sensible, at least. We had a lovely break with Grace and Len. We took them on some trips now that we had the car. We went to Westwood Ho and Dartmouth, amongst other places, and I found that I was getting to like them more and more. Pop was a gentleman and extremely funny, and Grace was a super cook and very hospitable. I started to relax with them. I can't remember how long we stayed or the journey back, but when we came home, I think Peter changed his job. Was this because the club closed, or was he offered a better position at Harrison and Crossfield? Leastways, this position was with an importer's, and he worked lunchtime hours again, and also brought quite a bit of produce home on Fridays for Auntie Ada and Mum. He was also given dinner services and tea sets and things like that, which I put away from my bottom drawer. A few weeks later, I started to feel a bit queasy. I was even sick a few times, and I took myself off to the doctor's, thinking I might have a tummy bug. He leaned across his consulting table and asked, "Is there a possibility you could be pregnant?" I'd never considered this. Surely using contraception meant I'd be all right. "Oh, no," I replied. "Well, we'll do a test just to be sure. I'll know in about a week to 10 days. Make an appointment at reception and come back and see me for the results." I came out of the surgery, which was in Alderman's Hill, and stood in Broomfield Park and thought about what he'd just said. I could be having a baby. How absolutely marvellous, fantastic, and all those superlative adjectives. I skipped along to work, bursting to tell everyone that I could be pregnant. I'd never even thought about it. I'd concentrated on not getting pregnant. But now, Well, I was so excited. The feeling began to fade as during the day I thought, I bet I'm not. Now the thought had been put in my mind, I longed for it to be so. Imagine me pregnant, how wonderful. When later that night I told Peter the marvellous news, his face betrayed a feeling of shock. I was gabbling on and was sure he'd feel the same as I did. But I could tell he didn't. He went very quiet and remained very quiet until the results. I remember feeling quite annoyed with him. Won't it be marvellous? We can bring the wedding forward. We've already got our lovely house and it won't make much difference at all. He looked at me and said, not believing a word I was saying. He's recently told me that his nightmare was getting a girl pregnant, and because of this he'd previously refrained from anything, which could result in the news he was just hearing. Up until now. How do you think your mum and dad will feel? He said. Oh, they'll be okay. Anyway, I said, picking up on his vibes, I'm sure it's a false alarm. After all, you can't get pregnant if you use contraception, can you? We'll just have to wait for the results. The time came for me to go back for the results. I sat in the consulting room and waited with bated breath for Dr. Barber to call me. Well, Pene, he said slowly, I have to tell you that you're pregnant. I think he was worried about how I would take the news. After all, he knew the family very well and also knew my circumstances. However, when he saw the huge grin on my face, I think he felt I could cope. I don't remember him saying anything else. I stepped out into the autumn sunshine and went and sat in the park. Well, this is it. The adventure I'd always wanted. Marriage, a baby, and with the man I adored and loved deeply. I told Peter the results. He remained quiet. How are we going to tell your mum and dad? This seemed to be a big concern for him. It didn't really faze me, and I said, oh, leave that up to me, I'll find a way. Dad's taking Chris to Cornwall this weekend on a trip, so I'll tell Mum on her own. It'll be easier than both of them. Don't worry, it'll be okay, they're great. Peter knew that, but this was different. Looking back, and to be totally honest, I know Peter did love me, but had he been swept along by the idea of marriage and now owning a house? He was happy with the arrangements up till now, but to be a father. After all, it was only a few months ago he'd left the security of the army. I don't think he was ready for it all. However, it was a fait accompli. It was something he was going to have to get used to. The baby was due in early May, and it was now the middle of September. He now tells me the way he coped with it all was to tell himself that if it didn't work out, he could always get divorced. A way of escape for himself if needed. He may not need it. Everything might be fantastic. But how could he know? Once he'd settled this in his mind, he seemed very happy, and our plans started to work out. Yeah, I suppose he had an escape route. Anyway, back to the problem of how to tell Mum and Dad. At the top of our stairs in the Hermitage, there was Mum and Dad's bedroom and a small landing with a cloakroom. It couldn't have worked better if I'd orchestrated it. I went into the toilet and forced myself to think of something sad. This was quite difficult as I actually felt so happy. As I did this and the tears started to roll down my face, I heard Mum coming up the stairs. I walked out of the toilet just at the right moment. And of course, Mum asked, "What's wrong, love?" "Nothing," I answered, and walked up the short flight of stairs, through my sitting room and into my bedroom. I sat myself on the bed and waited. knowing Mum was following me. Now come on, love, there must be something, otherwise you wouldn't be crying. Mum, there's something I could never tell you, I said dramatically. Don't forget, I had promising written on my dramatic arts exam comments. Now don't be silly. I think you can tell me anything, Mum kindly coaxed. I'm pregnant, I said. She looked at me and took a breath. After a few minutes she smiled and said, I thought you might be. I'm too young to be a grandma. She would be a young grandmother as well, 42 to be exact, and she had a 12-year-old son herself. It must have been a lot to take on board, but we had a big hug, and she said, come on downstairs and we'll make a cup of tea and talk about it. Okay, I'll wash my face and be down in a minute, but make it hot water, will you, Mum? I can't drink tea anymore, it makes me feel sick. She laughed and said, leave me to tell Dad. I think it'll be better coming from me. I'll choose the right moment. I think Mum instinctively knew that tact wasn't my middle name, and I hadn't yet learned that talking to the male species was easier if the right time for them was chosen. It could make all the difference. When she chose to tell him, I don't know, but he didn't say much to me except, you got your way in the end. An autumn wedding. When Peter came round that evening, Dad said, I want a word, Peter. Come into my study. Peter went in for his chat and came out bemused. Dad had said to him, how irresponsible getting my daughter pregnant. He had wanted to say how we hadn't been irresponsible and how we'd used contraception, but how could he say that to Dad? He just took it. Then Dad said, I've had one big worry in my life, and that is that Penny would get pregnant. And now I don't have to worry anymore. He walked Peter out to the car and, reaching into the boot, said, well, you'll be needing these, and gave him a blue metal box full of tools. Peter couldn't believe he'd got off so lightly, but I knew Mum and Dad would be okay. I told him. Peter then felt happy. The worst was over, and we looked forward to getting married and getting on with our life. So I think it will finally be the wedding, the next part. I've got the little electric heater here and I'm absolutely boiling. Do you do this? I've got this little jar. My lipsticks, I only wear one colour lipstick. And yeah, it's all the same. And when the lipstick's finished, I wear my lipsticks right down to the end. I dig it out of that little plastic bit that's in the, lipstick. And I did that this week. I had I think it was about 2 or 3 lipsticks, they'd finished. You couldn't get any more out except for that bit in the bottom bit. And so I put it in there. I mean, it's like having another whole lipstick. So popping it on with the lipstick brush, it's so worth doing. I don't know if you've ever thought of doing that, or is it just me, Mrs. Scrooge. I've got a photograph that I wanted to show you, and that is of my grandson. I think he's 35 now or 36, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, he's just bought himself a dog, him and his wife. And for their wedding, I made them a double wedding ring quilt, a decent sized quilt. And I know, they've used it a lot and they love it. But the new dog, my daughter went round for a meal and she said, Mum, the new dog is on your quilt. Quilt folded in half, so you only see half the quilt. The dog's name, they want to call her Bee, but she'll only answer to Beatrice, and she loves my quilt. She doesn't want anything else but to sit on that. And I feel like saying it is a double wedding ring. It's not one that's, easy to make, but I did teach my granddaughter-in-law how to make quilts, so I'm hoping she's going to make her darling Beatrice a quilt. If not, I can see myself doing one for her. So it's time to sign off now, and thank you for staying with me. And the little film is, as I said, of my walk, our walk there and back on a windy day. And I'm going to say cheerio, and it's going to be for a little while longer than usual, because I'm going to say cheerio until the new year. I'll see you soon. That month is going to fly by, and you take care. Love to you all, and thanks for being with me today. Bye-bye.
There's a new day that will come again tomorrow. There's a new day to wash away the pain. There's a new day to take away your sorrow, and the old ways get washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day to leave behind your troubles. There's a new day, and it will set you free. There's a new day to get you through your struggles. I will always think of you and me. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day. It is waiting for us. There's a new day waiting.